So my whole project is dealing with the transition from traditional media to new media. So one of the most fun things to talk about is the differences and similarities between those two different kinds of media. So to talk with me today is Alex, and we're just going to go over some of the little quick similarities and differences between traditional media and new media.
Yeah.
And so I defined what traditional media and new media are in my first video, but just as a quick refresher, for the sake of this video, traditional media is books, movies, television, radio, music, theater,
and
storytelling, and magazines.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then new media, things that appeared after the internet or became prevalent after the internet. So we've got web series, podcasts, fan fiction, social networking. So the first similarity and difference we're going to talk about is funding and advertising, because it's kind of similar and kind of completely different. So do you want to talk about advertising in traditional media?
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting because it feels more calculated, but in a different way, because what you deal with is a bunch of products aimed at the general population based on their viewing. Whereas with new media, what you get mostly is how they can zero in on exactly what you're wanting. For example, I was looking at boots online or something, and then for like a week straight, all I saw on Google, on like cracked.com, anything was
Boots.
Boots, yeah, boots.
I only
or, like,
get
anything.
ModCloth advertisements.
Exactly. So it's interesting that's the biggest shift, is that it's so much more personal, and I think that's the biggest difference between new and old media, is that it's aimed at a more specific population in new media and a more general population in old media.
I think that's a really good point. And I also think one of the interesting kind of switches is channels like PBS, which never really, they didn't really have advertising per se, they had people who funded them, so people who donated to them. That model is actually getting very successful in new media.
Yeah.
So they'll, YouTubers or bloggers will just choose a couple people who support them, and that's the form of advertising. So that's, again, just another way to be more specific. Only have people on your channel that you really support.
Like crowdsourcing.
Yeah. So a similarity between traditional media and new media is that they're made by people. And I kind of like this one because sometimes it feels like old media isn't made by people. Or I guess it feels that way with new media too, but for me, like, movies do not feel like they're made by people at all. Like they have people in them, but it doesn't feel like there's like a guy sitting at a computer being like, oh, love this scene, hate this scene. Like,
no, it's like, and like when you think about like all the credits, it makes it feel like so nebulous because there's a billion people making
and there's
one film.
Makeup artist for extra number 35 who does eyebrows.
Exactly.
And you're like, what?
What does that even mean?
And so the internet almost feels more made by people, but that's not true. There's in fact more people
making old media. Without question, because even like when magazines and newspapers, you have people who are editing, who get drinks, who run printing presses, who take pictures. No, and all of that stuff where, but for some reason it still feels like, I guess, it feels like the people who make new media do more.
Yeah.
Because they kind of cover all those bases, and new media allows them to do that.
That is so cool. Okay. And then a difference between, so that's a similarity, and then we have a difference, which is the certification or degree required to make the media. So,
yeah, that's true.
to be makeup artist for extra number 28
who does eyebrows,
you have to have gone to school.
Yeah.
Or be certified to like
as like an esthetician or something weird like that.
But I am in no way qualified to make these YouTube videos.
No, not at all.
You
have a camera.
It's free, actually.
Yeah.
It's 100% free.
Like the startup comparatively is nothing.
And I wonder if that has to do then the other has to do with the advertising bit that we talked about. So because I didn't have to pay anything to be able to make new media, I don't have to be making any money. I don't have to do any advertising.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't know. But it is definitely a cool difference.